Hello, Dr. Coker here, and I'm going to explain the entire post-Heavensward story in 10 minutes. This includes patches 3.1 through 3.56. At the conclusion of Heavensward, it looks like peace between Ishgard and the dragons is finally possible. You and Lucia meet with Vidofnir and ask about making a formal peace agreement, but Vidofnir doesn't have an answer quite yet. Later in Idleshire, you meet Kryl, a survivor student of Baldessian who possesses the Echo, and you head to Matoya's cave. She says using Matoya's crystal eye, she can help locate Thancred, who's still missing. She uses it and senses Thancred's essence in the Dravanian Forelands, so you head that way. After speaking with local villagers and friendly members of the Nath tribe, you learn that Thancred was headed to Ravana's lair. As rumor has it, he's been summoned once again. You approach Ravana's lair, and to your shock, he is slain by a band of heroes you've never seen before. Then you have a vision and see these heroes in the past talking about slaying an Ascian and saving the world. Back in reality, they mock you for not getting here quickly enough and a fight breaks out. They are quite powerful, but during the fight you are rescued by a surprise attack from none other than Thancred himself. They reveal that they are the warriors of darkness before they flee. The Scions happily reunite with Thancred, but also marvel at how these warriors of darkness have gone unnoticed this whole time. You then return to Vidofnir to tell her Ravana's been slain, and she agrees to come to Ishgard to formally accept a peace agreement on behalf of the dragons. Meanwhile in Ishgard, Sir Aymeric is stabbed by a street thug and unrest spreads in the city while Aymeric recovers. The Temple Knights accuse Sir Aymeric of high treason and patricide, and they demand that Sir Aymeric faces judgment. You accompany Sir Aymeric and assault the vault once again, and during a heated exchange with a priest at the top, the priest throws a child to her death. Just then, Vidofnir swoops in and saves the child in front of all the citizens of Ishgard. She then warns everyone that Nidhogg is on the move before leaving again. Sometime later, Thancred and Kryl lead a failed attempt at finding Minfilia, but Y'shtola says that at the Anti-Tower, one can get a good vantage point of the ethereal sea. She says Matoya knows how to reach the Anti-Tower, so everyone heads back to Matoya's cave. Matoya shows you the entrance to the Anti-Tower, so you fight your way through it. At the apex, you hold out your crystal and you have a vision, not of Hydaelyn, but Minfilia. Minfilia says she is now the voice of the Mother Crystal, and she teaches you many things she has learned. She says that in ancient times the world was sundered into 13 shards, and the Ascians seek to rejoin all the shards back to the source world. They rejoin these shards by means of planetary calamities, thus the 7 umbral calamities correspond to 7 shards the Ascians have already rejoined to the source. When you return, the Scions are puzzled by her words and saddened that she's not coming back, but Matoya encourages you to toughen up and keep your eyes forward. Returning to Ishgard, Sir Aymeric warns that some may try to thwart the upcoming peace conference. Sure enough, you are soon drugged by an angry widow, and while you're knocked out, she starts an uprising, reminding the citizens of all the pain and loss the dragons have inflicted. Emanelaine panics and orders a guard to stop her, and the guard shoots her twice in front of the whole city. Emanelaine panics more and flees. This further angers and divides the people, but no further violence breaks out. Moments later, he lashes out in anger and hits Thancred, but Thancred decks him in the jaw, knocking him to the floor. You speak to Aymeric, and he proposes a grand melee to lift people's spirits. Later, after some self-reflection, Emanelaine holds his head high and offers to join the Grand Melee to restore his honor. You join as well, fighting for sport on Ishgard's side against the other Eorzean nations. The battle is grand and Ishgard emerges the victor, lifting everyone's spirits. After, the peace conference resumes, and peace is formally declared. But Estinian, possessed by Nidhogg, crashes the party and deeply wounds Vidofnir, then flees the scene. Later, Alphinaud says he wants to tear Nidhogg's eyes from Estinian's armor in hopes that it will save him. Kryl and Y'shtola warn against it, but he insists. Then a messenger summons them to meet with Sir Aymeric, who tells them the only way to stop Nidhogg is to ally with his brother, Hraesvelgr. Aymeric says this may be impossible, but he's willing to do whatever it takes. He travels with you to the Churning Mists. At the meeting with Hraesvelgr, Alphinaud recalls when Hraesvelgr helped Yazael in Azazla, and Sir Aymeric says he understands firsthand what it's like to go against family. After the miniature Midgard Sormir appears in support of their arguments, Hraesvelgr agrees to help if they can prove their worth at Sor Kai. You meet this challenge, and Hraesvelgr joins your side. Soon after, Nidhogg's forces assault Ishgard, and you and Sir Aymeric arrive on Dragonback accompanied by Hraesvelgr to stand in defense of Ishgard. Battle rages on as you face Nidhogg for the last time at the Steps of Faith. As you defeat him, he transforms into Estinian, so Alphinaud proceeds to tear the eyes from his armor. It works and Nidhogg dies, then you cast the eyes into a chasm. Later, Estinian awakens in the infirmary and speaks about how Nidhogg's rage was consuming him, but thanks to his friends he is now free. Sir Aymeric reforms the Ishgardian government to unanimous applause from the citizens, and Estinian disappears from the infirmary. Days later, you enjoy a celebratory meal with Sir Aymeric, but a messenger says an injured woman was brought to Manor Fortant. It's Alice, Alphino's sister, and Thancred is there as well. He says they were tracking the Warrior of Darkness, but they got discovered and had to flee. You head to Zelphatal because they plan to summon Garuda there next. You manage to stop the summoning, but the Warrior of Darkness shows up and tells his tale. He mentions the 13 shards and says they came from the first shard, and in order to save their world, they slayed the Ascians. But instead, their world was consumed by light, and the only way to save his world is to work with the Ascians and doom the source, your world. Then they leave, and you return to Alice. She and Thancred believe the Warriors of Darkness are slaying primals only to escalate desperation in the Beast Tribes in some greater effort to trigger a calamity. A tip from Urianger leads the Scions to investigate the Kobold tribe next, where you meet Gabu, a friendly kobold who tries to help you stop them from summoning Titan. You find their supply of crystals and other useful information, but you fail to stop the summoning and end up having to slay Titan again. Alice develops intense sympathy for Gabu, as his parents were slain for Titan, and he's now silent and lost. Elsewhere, a masked man tells the Warrior of Darkness he will draw out the Warrior of Light for him. Then you learn that large quantities of crystals are being hoarded in Little Alamigo, so you go there next. You find that many Alamigans are captivated by a new charismatic masked resistance leader who calls himself the Griffin. You attend one of his rallies, and he speaks of a new power at their disposal. Then you see Ida and Papalimo among the crowd, and all of you meet in private. Together, you hatch a plan to meet the Griffin, where you learn that they are collecting crystals not to summon a primal, but to give to the Amalja tribe in exchange for help in the resistance. So you rush to the Amalja tribe and find, once again, the Warriors of Darkness who have just slain the primal Ifrit whom the Amalja summoned. They bind you in chains, but the masked man appears, sets you free, then reveals that he is Urianger. Promising to explain everything later, he joins your side as you fight Warriors of Light versus Warriors of Darkness. You win, but the Warriors of Darkness reveal that they have been long dead, and they travel between worlds the same way the Ascians do, revealing their crystals of light. But you take out your crystal, and all of you are brought before Hydaelyn's voice, Minfilia. Minfilia says she will put an end to this by traveling to the first shard and absorbing the flood of light into herself, saving that world. Urianger reveals he orchestrated this whole thing, which will trade one life for one world. Minfilia for the first shard, and she gladly accepts the sacrifice, but first returns everyone to their worlds. Moments later, all the Scions meet, reunited and accounted for but now leaderless. They agree to continue autonomously, and Papalimo takes the staff of Louisoix. Meanwhile, we see that the Ascian has recovered the eyes of Nidhogg, and he gives them to the Griffin. Back at the Rising Stones, an injured woman named Minago arrives. She's part of the Alamigan resistance, but she says the Griffin has a reckless plan to attack Baelsar's Wall, the line dividing Gridania from Garlemald. He wants to initiate a conflict between the Alliance and the Imperial forces stationed in Alamigo. Sir Aymeric wants to help, so the 4 Alliance leaders meet in Gridania. They each agree to lend their aid to secure Gridania, but Alphino fears they are doing exactly what the Griffin wants. Anyway, you wait with Alphino at a tower near the wall, and before long, fighting breaks out. News arrives that the attackers are wearing forged Grand Company uniforms, and since the Alliance troops are amassed outside the wall, it only makes the ruse more believable. The Empire will be convinced that Eorzea has initiated a war. The Scions enter Baelsar's Wall, while Hilda from Ishgard secures an airship in case they need to escape. Atop the wall, the Griffin is revealed to be Ilberd, the former Crystal Brave, but you defeat him. Alphino pleads with him, but he instead pulls out the eyes of Nidhogg, then sacrifices himself to summon a deity more deadly than Bahamut. Papalimo then follows in Master Louisoix's footsteps. He uses his staff and sacrifices himself to bind the terrible deity and save Eorzea. Hilda arrives with the airship, and the Scions flee as Papalimo performs the ritual. Safely aside, Ida is furious, but Thancred agrees to stay with her while the others return to the Rising Stones. Later, you're invited to another meeting of leaders in Gridania. During this one, the Garlean engineer Nero Tolskeva shows up and proposes a radical idea: to awaken Omega and set it to destroy this new bound deity at Baelsar's Wall. Cid and Alphino have their reservations, but ultimately they agree to this plan. Back at the Rising Stones, a very loud and tall man named Gosetsu arrives, having traveled all the way from Doma. He has come to take Yugiri back home, but she says she has important work here now. When Gosetsu learns it involves fighting the Garleans, he happily offers his blade for the cause. The Scions proceed to the Omega Control Center, where they are attacked by a Garlean warlord named Grinawat. After you defeat him, Cid and Nero awaken Omega, and an epic battle ensues between Omega and the Griffin's terrible god. It's not clear what the outcome of the battle was, but the two beings crash-landed in Alamigo, and Kan Isina says she recognized the dragon god as Shinryu. Near the wall, you approach Ida, who's mourning the loss of Papalymo. She then takes off her mask and says Ida was killed by Imperials 6 years ago. She is in fact not Ida, but her younger sister, Lise, and has been stealing her identity until now. She apologizes for the deception, but still wants to fight for the Scions and for Alamigo, as Ida once did. Papalymo always knew her secret and encouraged her to reveal herself. This concludes the post-Heavensward story, where we've met many new characters and learned a bit about regions beyond Eorzea. Keep an eye on this channel. I'll be working on a 10-minute recap of Stormblood next. Until next time.